Hi, I am Kevin. I am back for my second retreat in Montenegro, and this is day 4 of my exit. And a few days into the retreat, Svetlana asked me, was this a harder retreat than the last time? And I said yes, and I said I would explain now why it was so hard. So I will tell you the journey between the last retreat almost a year ago, exactly a year ago, and this one. I completed that retreat. I felt much better, not 100% better, but still considerably better. Still very tired. My wife picked me up at the airport. I knew that I had to dry fast. I had to dry fast again. I knew I had to do another long one on my own, but I knew how to do it. I didn't have all the support that they have here at the retreat, but I basically knew what to do, and I was able to enlist a woman who was very open-minded, and she would try and learn the Russian practices, but so she was about 60% as good, but she helped me through it. So I did dry fast a second 9-day in my mountains, which are in mountains of Vermont near Canada. One thing that made that difficult was there were wildfires in Canada. So about 3 days in, I was walking in smoky air, which was very difficult. But I got through it. And I had a friend who helped me ice douse on days 8 and 9. She was very open-minded too. Um, so I accomplished those 2 fasts. Unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, but I have 2 daughters. One graduated from college, one graduated from high school, and we planned a trip. So we took a trip to Europe, to Amsterdam and to Paris. And if there's one challenge to refeeding after a dry fast, it's Paris. So I pretty much adhered to what I was supposed to do, but I think I ate a few too many kind of dessert things. Not a lot, but probably did not help. But that's not why this fast was harder. What made this fast much harder was when I came back. Um, when I came back to the States, I got an email, and I had applied to a study because my situation is that I had long COVID. I had COVID, which revealed that I had Lyme disease, and it manifested in neurological pressure in my head and fatigue and jumpy muscles and all kinds of horrible stuff. Couldn't read, couldn't look at screens, couldn't listen to music initially, but that all got a lot better from fasting. Anyway, I got an email saying I had been admitted into a study in the United States from a very prestigious university to take a drug for long COVID. And so it's very difficult to explain how the culture really overwhelms you when you're back in your country, and the Western medicine says you need only to do this one thing and you will be cured. So I was getting paid $500. They paid me money to take the drug. So I took it, and I felt, and it was either a placebo or the drug. They won't tell me until this June what I actually took. But I know that the placebo itself was a drug, which was harmful, which is not ethical at all. Anyway, I took it, I felt okay for a week, and then everything just got worse. And I took this drug for 15 days. It's Paxlovid, which is the drug that people take for COVID. And so I basically, I did that, and then it was kind of a slippery slope because I was feeling run down. I was back in the medical establishment. I had a test for microclots in my blood, and they said, oh yes, you have microclots in your blood. So then I thought, oh, I don't want that. So I took this recommendation of some, doctors who are trying to help people. I took anticoagulant drugs, 3 anticoagulant drugs to thin my blood, and it was quite crazy. And it was about that time that I connected with a friend because I was really thinking this is really bad, just back where I was, and connected with a friend. We went on a long walk. I don't think she realized that I was on uh, triple anticoagulant drugs, and if I fell and hit my head, I would probably die because I would have a brain bleed. So they say do not fall when you're on anticoagulant drugs. So this just made me realize how absolutely insane the medical establishment is in the United States from my point of view. They help a lot of people, but in my case, and in the case of millions of other people, they make things worse. So I was considering coming back to Montenegro, and gentle persuasion from my friend uh, convinced me that it was the right thing to do. It was very hard to be back in your culture and be doubting, even though all my friends had told me that over the past year, everything had gotten better. Like it was so slow, it was like incrementally better. I was able to read, I hiked a mountain, which it's my favorite thing to do by myself. And so everything had been getting better until these setbacks that I think were brought about by taking all the pharmaceutical drugs. So I just made a decision to come back, and it was the absolute best decision I ever made. This retreat, the energy the last time was good, but this retreat was over the top. I mean, the energy was so good, and the people were so good, and to see the familiar faces again was so welcoming. And the weather was even better because we influenced the weather apparently. So it's great. And all I can say is, now I'm gonna go like this. Now I'm going to say a few things that are rather difficult, kind of gross. But I was on day 9 of the retreat. Had a practice of sitting on the water's edge, sitting very close to the water, just so I had nothing to look at but the water, and it made it easier for me to get through the day. And all through the week, I think people realized I was coughing up. I was continually coughing up. Something was coming out of my body, and I was sitting by the water's edge. It was been going on for days, just constant bile or whatever it was that was coming up. It was just horrible stuff. And I just snorted really hard. and I thought, well, I feel a lot better. And then I was looking down at my foot and I saw this like sea creature on my shoe. And I realized it was what had just come out of my nose. It was this huge, bloody, fibrin nest, bacteria laden, whatever it was. It had probably been in my body for 2 years. And it's the kind of thing where back home they say you should take, squirt herbs up your nose, take antibiotics and put them up your nose, or take colloidal silver and put it up your nose. And eventually, the dry fasting blew it out of my system. So it's entirely gone. So I'm sorry if that's gross, you can cut it out. And then the other revelation I had was, and this is very staggering to me because it was also around day 8 or 9, I started feeling like a scar on my head emerge on my head. And I was like, did I scrape myself? Did I hit a door jam or something? And it dawned on me, this is a scar that I got 30 years ago when I was about 30 years old. I was in New York City, and a gang came up behind me, and I was walking with a friend, and they started throwing things at us. And I turned around and confronted them, which was probably a mistake because I challenged them. And the guy took a knife handle and hit me on the head, and I had blood pouring all down the side of my face. But it wasn't that, it was that I was so angry and ashamed and afraid, and I ran across the street, like I ran away from them, and they were like 17-year-olds and I was 30, so it was humiliating. And I think I held that experience, and I hadn't even thought about it in 20 years that this had happened. But somehow the dry fast made the scar come back. It's like my body held on to the thing in my body had held on for 20 years, and I've had a lot of illness-related things that have to do with the side of my head and my neck, and so to me that was it was like a gift on day 8 or 9 that something was that I'd been holding on to for so long was released. I hope, that's my assumption. That's what it felt like. And maybe I'm making it up, but it just certainly felt like my body had held on to something for 30 years and was letting go. And that might have been the seed of my vulnerability to all these things, to Lyme and COVID, etc. So I'm not out of the woods yet. I still have some of my symptoms, but I would say it's like 25% of what I had a year ago. And I have a lot of support from my skeptical relatives and my worried mother, who's 86, and brother and others who are now convinced that I've done the right thing. And people are starting to ask me about what I've done because it seems to be I've done the right thing. I just can't believe how this all happened. So I want to thank Dr. Filonov, Svetlana, Daniela, Anastasia, Nastya, and everybody, because it's a one of a kind experience, and it's it's 9 days of your life, maybe a couple times or 3 times or 4 times, but it's just there's nothing to compare to it, and I think it's a very little sacrifice to make for getting your health back.